suspect that a lot of dentists are not crushing it, and that leads to a lot of imposter syndrome.
Still the same exact pressure and the same expectation that, oh, you're a dentist, you got to be crushing it. But as far as the path forward to actually crushing it, there's like a million different ways you can try to achieve that.
That's the crazy thing that people used to tell me all the time. Like, Allison, all you have to do is do great dentistry and you'll be successful. I can't believe how many people told me that, and that's nonsense. It was...
Welcome to the Authentic Dentist Podcast. Join Dr. Allison House of House Dental in Scottsdale and Shawn Zajas, founder of Zajas, as they lead dentists deeper along the journey of authenticity to reach greater fulfillment in their professional lives and to deliver remarkable patient experiences.
Allison, interesting topic, the idea of imposter syndrome. And I think it's pretty rampant in dentistry. And I think there's a lot of factors contributing to that where, I don't know, the culture of dentistry is, I think you're just expected to have to be an individual that's succeeding and just crushing it. You know, whether you're out with your peers and it's like, well, how are you doing? Oh, my practice is crushing it. We're doing great. And even from the patient's perspective, patients just assume you're a dentist. You must be wealthy. I remember reading a Gary Cotty book, $1 Million Dentistry. I think he's a consultant out here in Scottsdale. And he's talking about this fictional dentist in the opening and how all of a sudden, you know, the bills of, you know, the spouse is expecting them to be able to both drive, you know, nice cars and their kids go to nice colleges and everything must be nice even in their community because, you know, they're a dentist and they make good money. So there's just a lot of pressure, I feel. And that's probably what also contributes to burnout. But starting with imposter syndrome, what's your take on that?
I think maybe just like all pieces of society, we have this ideal version of what a dentist is supposed to be. And for me, it was my childhood dentist who was in his 40s and he had 2 kids and he worked 4 days a week. And I assumed that he had a lot of money because he had a big house and he would go golfing every Wednesday afternoon. The office would be closed. There was just this expectation that he would give the largest amount of money to the high school. And he was also there. You know, my friend who has a father who is an oral surgeon, he was never at our football games. He was never at anything because he couldn't be. But the dentist was. The dentist in my town was. So there's this version that we, I think till today, in 2025, we still believe that that's what we're supposed to be, is that person that owns their own practice, the pillar in the community. But that dentist back home, he had a totally different life than what we have now. He lived in a totally different world. And so, yes, a lot of times I feel like I'm an imposter because I should be him, but I don't know of anybody that actually is.
Okay, so when you shared, this is exactly what I was seeing. Like it just instantly. Dentistry 20 years ago, 30 years ago was just a little bit
40 years ago. Yeah.
was simpler. You know, you put up a ad in the newspaper or in the yellow pages. You know, you set up a sign, you maybe even set up a website the second they came around, and
there was no website.
And patients would come. There was a lot less dimensions to, it's not just dimensions, it's levers. There's not as many levers that existed back then. So the discrepancy between a really, really great practice that knew how to do all the things versus a practice that didn't know how, it just wasn't as big of a variance. Now, with, oh my gosh, all these different marketing softwares, you know, like the way that social media changed everything, now the way that certain practices are leveraging AI, and, you know, you have multi-practice locations, you have different business models. There's all this dimension to it. So I feel like maybe the rich might be getting richer that are doing the best, but I think there's a bigger discrepancy, not to mention, you know, education costs have gone up. So I'm just saying, like, being a dentist today, there's still the same exact pressure and the same expectation that, oh, you're a dentist, you got to be crushing it. But as far as the path forward to actually crushing it, there's like a million different ways you can try to achieve that.
I suspect that a lot of dentists are not crushing it. And that leads to a lot of imposter syndrome. And part of that is because of the crushing education debt, which we just have to acknowledge. When you graduate from dental school, you're $600,000, $700,000 in debt. It's insane. That's a huge amount of money that you have to pay back every month. So you're not going to be driving a fancy car at that moment in time. Now, hopefully at some point you are. But I think there's this expectation that you've graduated, you're making money, you should be able to be rich. And that's just not the reality for anybody that had to pay their own way. I don't know if it's even the reality for people who had somebody pay for their education, because you still have to learn how to do all these procedures. And just like anything, you don't learn everything you need to know in dental school. There's too much. I suspect back in the 80s, it was easier because there weren't as many procedures. There weren't as many options. There wasn't anything on Instagram showing these perfect teeth that everybody had. People were just fine as long as their teeth didn't hurt. So the expectations have changed too.
So again, you're talking about even dentistry, how it's evolved, new technologies like CBTC.
Cone beam, yeah.
Yeah. I'm always leery of saying that because my own program, Care Behind the Chair, was a different CB, whatever. Not just are the technologies, have they evolved? People are printing their own teeth, but because of that advancement, it's like, you're right, maybe in the 80s, a dentist could be like, hey, I kind of know the playbook for success. I take care of my patients, I'm really good to my team. And
that was the crazy thing that people used to tell me all the time. Like, Allison, all you have to do is do great dentistry and you'll be successful. I can't believe how many people told me that, and that's nonsense. It was total nonsense, and that was 25 years ago.
Do you think there was a time?
Yes.
I
think in the 80s
was
that was true. You do good work, patients would talk about you, they would come to see you. There are so many dentists, first of all, now that's not true. And the reality is that patients have no idea the quality of your work. So it's just not true. You do good work and patients will come. That is not success anymore.
So that's what I think is interesting about this idea of leverage. Leverage didn't really exist there during that time at the same scale. So the fact that you can have a Brian Harris today, where because of Instagram, someone can travel across the country just to get a smile makeover. Okay, in the 80s, how are people going to know that you're the specialist on smile makeovers? You do a postcard campaign across the country?
It wasn't a thing.
Right?
I mean, that's the biggest part. It wasn't a thing. People didn't have veneers. If you look at movies, old movies, people's teeth are crooked and yellow. That was a smile makeover is a very new thing in the last 25 years. I would say at one time, maybe there was a Beverly Hills doctor that was doing all the smile makeovers for celebrities. And if you wanted something like that, you would fly out to Beverly Hills and see that dentist. But now there are dentists all over the country that do this. But again, it's the marketing that we have to market. They did not have to market back in the 80s. We have to be the best. And I don't even know what the best is, but we're supposed to be the best in some field, in some area. There's also this expectation of perfection that patients have of us, and not just our dental work, but like who we are as people. And, you're supposed to have this perfect family, and you're supposed to be a parent and show up to all of the recitals and the soccer games, and you're supposed to be a pillar of the community. And most of us, I mean, it's really hard just to run the practice, much less can I have this perfect life outside of the practice. It's a lot of pressure, and I think most people expect that of us.
As I'm hearing you, I think someone might, like as a counter to the argument, well, hey, as times evolve, they always evolve, right? But it's not a linear curve. It is so massively exponential right now. Yeah, the internet made it go a little bit steeper, but the second AI shows up, the rate at which, I was just listening to a marketing company saying like, they're on the cusp of so much of what's new and happening in marketing, and their whole job is to stay on the forefront where they're not surgeons, right? They're not having to manage clinical expectations, just the business side. And people are paying attention to simply the business side of change are like, we can't keep track of all the new AI products out there and the different ways that they're causing disruption. You can only, like, everything's underutilized. You can only, utilize 2 or 3% of the best practices out there for a certain strategy that may or may not work. And once you master that, it may not be relevant in another 6 months. So the rate of change makes it so that someone that feels like they ought to have success or they should have success because they're so vested in education with their debt and everything, it's like, We don't know what dentistry is going to look like in 3 to 5 years, but that doesn't take away from the pressure of how, like what you're saying, everyone expects you. And it's not just the expectation. You literally take care of the livelihood of your entire team.
That has always been true, but it's harder now with insurance reimbursement being so low, student debt, and just the amount of technology. You touched on that, the cone beam. I have a CEREC and a milling machine and a 3D printer. And, it used to be when I went to my dentist, he had a paper chart for me. He took an x-ray and he had to go dip it in the back into some chemicals. That is not the expense that I have to have with I think there's 10 computers in my office plus the server. I have to back up on the cloud. I mean, there's just so many pieces of technology that are very expensive that I have to have in order to practice dentistry. It's weird that I have to have the internet and a computer in order to practice dentistry, but it's true. And in the 80s, that was not true. So their overhead was much smaller than ours is.
So here's the tension, and I can understand why people feel like an imposter, because you're supposed to have all the answers to some extent, right? You don't want a patient showing up and they're like, "Hey, what's wrong with my teeth?" And you're like, "I don't really know." Well, how about this tooth? Yeah, I don't really know. Like a dentist knows. You're the professional. But in the business space, again, because of the rate of change,
we don't know though. I think that is really important for people to know. We don't have all the answers. I can tell you there was a time in my life when I told patients they were brushing too hard. And that is not why they have all those grooves in their teeth now. I know that. There was a time when I thought they were drinking too much lemon water, when the reality was they were having acid reflux, because we just didn't know. So information is evolving all the time, and keeping up with that has been really difficult, just like what you're talking about in the business space.
Well, so the crazy thing is, you either get overwhelmed, stay on the sideline, and watch as everyone starts implementing things. So your competitors, people in your community, they're doing a better job optimizing, elevating, being more efficient. And then that fear is, I'm going to lose my patience. I'm going to lose my confidence and my mojo and my practice. And it's this downward spiral. Or you do what Heartland did. Ooh, AI, it's really helping with training an agent to handle phone calls, to be able to handle talking to patients better. And then next thing you know, they get in some wiretapping lawsuit where, because I forgot which service they were using, but because there's different states with different policies, they get in massive trouble. And another DSO just got sued for that too. So it's like, if you move too fast, too quick into an area where there's not clear legislation, there's not clear compliance, you risk getting, sued. So it's a really weird frontier right now for dentistry.
I mean, it is. I can't even explain how complicated it is. You're talking about this AI piece, and yet there's also this piece where patients need us to be present and for them. And so what do you optimize with AI? What do you use, a robot or some kind of program for? And when does a patient need to actually talk to a human being and listen? And it's a hard line. What is that? And where do you have to have it in your practice in order for patients to feel safe? And yet the reality is, I cannot afford to have human beings doing all of those things. It's impossible. It's not realistic anymore.
And then imagine if you just graduated, or you're 3-4 years out. Just the landscape, it's so complex and so confusing. So going back to our initial point, I could see why people might feel like an imposter, because you can't be positioned to really know, like, you hopefully know what you don't know. And like right now as a business owner, I don't know a lot. I'm advising certain people on AI, and it's maybe like 5% of AI is what I'm starting to understand, and it's already helping people out. The other 95%, I don't know, and I can't. And the rate at which a new program comes out, or a new LLM comes out, or a new application, it's just happening so fast that, I don't know, I think all of us, if we're honest, it's like, yeah, I feel like an imposter in so many different areas. And I think the key here is why we urge people to be authentic. If you hang your hat on the areas where at least you have some modicum of expertise, because I think being an imposter is just when you maybe represent an aspect of yourself that's maybe inflated or something like that. So I don't know. I don't know if we're all going to have to just keep saying, I don't know this, I don't know that, just so people get a clear idea. That's not the whole point, but I think we're just in a really, really tricky situation right now.
I think a lot of us have imposter syndrome, but we're not necessarily imposters. We really are business people. We really are dentists. We have that education. It's just the expectation that we're supposed to know everything. And the truth is nobody does. Nobody has all of the information. Nobody knows where we're going in the future. Nobody knows if you should invest in this piece of technology. I don't know. Buy a 3D printer, fancy one that'll print crowns for you. You know, that may be obsolete in 2 years and you wasted your money. It's hard to tell. But it's also important that you just keep moving forward. And I think the biggest thing to take away is that you have to just learn from what you've made mistakes. You don't think of yourself as an imposter. You just think of yourself as, I'm learning. Every day I'm learning. And the day you stop learning is the day you should retire, because there's so much information. You're going to do some things wrong. And that doesn't mean you're an imposter. It just means this is the data that you knew at the time. I did a lot of things 20 years ago that honestly worked, but I wouldn't do them today because I know that the answers are different. I know that there was a medical problem instead of a dental problem there. But at the time, I didn't know. Put a gold crown on it, still there. So that's good. So you do the best you can do, and you just have to accept that you're not an imposter. You really are the person that you say you are, and you don't know everything.
I just wonder, though, like what this means for dentistry. If it's making it so the conditions for success in dentistry are that you have to be a good dentist, well, maybe that's not a condition, but you need to be entrepreneurial where you're able to pivot, move, be fine embracing risk, handling an environment where you can't control everything.
This is not dentists. That's not who we are.
Right.
We are control freaks. We are perfectionists. We want everything a certain way. So the world is asking us to be very different from how we've been trained and who our real personalities are.
But if I just graduated in the last 4 or 5 years and I'm going around to different conferences saying, okay, well, like, tell me, like, give me a grid for what dentistry is right now. No one can give you a grid of like, this is exactly what dentistry is because it's too nuanced. It's 1,000 different expressions in all these different ways. What's the dentistry you want? And the dentistry you pick may not be a successful version of it because that may not be where the market's going. But the market's just going in so many different ways so fast that I don't know. I think someone that would like to have an idea of, ooh, this is a model that's sustainable, that's stable, and this is a blueprint that's going to work. And then someone's like, oh yeah, that doesn't exist. That would terrify me because I also like the idea of some sense of control, some sense of predictability. And dentistry is becoming the opposite of predictable.
But I also can't help but think like Netflix. So there are so many programs on Netflix that are geared for someone like me or someone like you. And when they're geared towards me, there's a whole audience that would choose that program. That's why it exists. So that's kind of what I think about in dentistry. My practice is geared for this group of people. It's a smaller group of people. It's not for the masses. But that group of people are going to gravitate towards me and what I'm doing. So you have to just pick something that you want to be and do in that area. And people will gravitate towards you because there is a group of people that are interested in that kind of dentistry. And if you pick something else, you're going to have a different group of people. Hopefully you pick something with people you like, not people you don't like. But I think we are becoming much more nuanced in what we want versus that 1980s dentist who served the entire community. Everybody in town went to them, and they just did general dentistry. There was no choices, kind of like we all watched MASH or Cosby Show. There wasn't anything else to watch. That's what was on TV.
Right. Everything's fragmented now. But I shouldn't be surprised that Dr. Allison House, the authentic dentist, brought it back to authenticity. And how still your best strategy for success along the lines of some sort of model is to say, well, you know, what is a version that's going to be true to me? Because regardless of whether I optimize it perfectly, regardless of whether I'm massively efficient and I choose the best software and the best levers, well, I still want to at least be fulfilled and play to my strengths and to who I am, so that at least that area, I'm not faking this.
Yeah, so you are who you are in your practice. and whatever that design is. And if you want AI to answer your phones and you want all of this technology, there's a whole market for that. There's a whole group of people that are looking for that kind of a dentist. You just have to attract those people. And there's a whole group of people that will hate you and not like you, and that's fine too. So I think that you can't pick the best. There isn't a best. Just like there isn't a best anything for you in particular. You know, you pick a pair of shoes. This is a shoe you like. It worked for you. Maybe there was a better one out there, but I'm not going to try on every shoe in the world. We're just going to wear these. You have to decide, this is what I'm going to do, and then be the best you can in that area.
I can kind of see how why the value proposition for a DSO could get stronger in the future, though. Hey, you want to be a dentist? You want to practice dentistry and just be chairside and not have to worry about all the complexity, all the nuance, all the crazy market evolutions that leave you staying awake at night wondering whether you can pay your team and get patients coming in. What if we handle all that for you? Like, I can understand why that's still a very alluring promise.
And I think it absolutely is for some dentists. And I think for some dentists, they find that they need more autonomy than that. They don't want to be told what to do. That is also our personality. We're kind of wanting to do our own thing, and certainly don't want somebody who doesn't have an education in dentistry telling us what to do. At the same time, I can see the allure of working for someone and not having to deal with all the things that I deal with. It's Friday. I was in the office all this morning. I mean, there's just always so much paperwork that has to be done when you own your own business. And that's just true in any business, I know. But it would be nice to just go home, close the door, and not worry about it anymore. That would be nice. But then I've also made it so other people are making decisions for me too, that I don't necessarily want them to make.
So at this stage in your life, with your practice being very mature, in what ways do you still confront the voices where, again, some imposter syndrome could be whispering to you? And what's your remedy for it?
I mean, I still have this crazy perfectionism. And so I feel like everything that I prep is supposed to be perfect, every crown, but I can tell you that sometimes when I have a patient with Parkinson's and they're moving around, it is not perfect. It just isn't. And I hate that. So I do feel like an imposter there. The money issue, I mean, people are talking about how much money they're making. They're making so much money. They're 4 years out of school, money that I've never made. And so that makes me feel like a failure and an imposter. Why can't I do this? And there's a lot of reasons that I don't make the kind of money I do that they're talking about. But some of it is okay because of the people I've chosen around me. I'm a single practitioner. There's reasons I could probably make more if I did some changes, but I don't want to. So it's a choice. And then I also feel like at this point in my career, I should know everything. I know it's not possible, but I definitely have those moments when I'm like, how come I don't know this? I should know everything out there, but I can't. I mean, the knowledge in dentistry is miles wide. I just can't know all of it.
What do you think the prevailing criteria for a successful dentist is right now? Like, meaning, what has been exaggerated because of social media, because of what gets shared, because of what gets clicks? Is it the, multi-location practice owner? Is it the $4 or $5 million practice owner? Like,
the multi-location practice owner really needs a business background. That is not something that a general dentist with not a single business class should do. You really have to know what you're doing in order to manage even one business, but 6 practices, you really need to have a lot more background. So that's not a typical thing to do. I do think that you need to be really good at what you're going to do. I think a lot of people want to do a whole veneer case and full mouth rehab, and that's fine, but I don't think that every patient wants that. So you really have to figure out the patients that you're wanting to attract. And if you're in the middle of Alabama in a rural community, you're probably not going to do as many full mouth rehabs and veneer cases. So that may not be the skill set that you need to develop. So those are just things you need to pay attention to.
Okay, so my direction, I'm so sorry. I actually meant more like, what's the pressure of like the wrong like image of this is what success is now? What's the high water mark that people talk about as if like you're only successful if you have a X amount of size practice? Like, what are the things that the people throw around and I don't know what it was 20 years ago, if it was just having like $1 million practice, but that doesn't seem like that's the high water mark anymore that somehow people are talking about.
It's all over the board.
Like, is there pressure? That's what I'm saying, to almost like start your own group practice or start your own multi-location, franchise. So, like, what's the things that you see people are saying? Oh no, this is like the new thing in dentistry that.
I think it is the fee-for-service model with a partner or two partners, a small group practice where you make all your own decisions. You have tons of patients, and you make a ton of money doing that. So I think that is the ideal that most people are striving for, but it's a fee-for-service model. When again, I think most patients that see the dentist regularly have insurance, so that's not a common model. So I think the most common model is probably a group practice or a solo practitioner that takes insurance, some insurance, and does a wide variety of procedures. But that's not the multi-million-dollar practice.
Okay, so Dr. House, here I am. I'm a dentist. Every now and then I feel burnout. Every now and then I feel like I'm an imposter. But I want to keep going so I can keep giving good dentistry and helping people. What's your final message to me?
When I'm feeling really burned out, I try and do more connection. So I think that AI, the technology, it makes us kind of run from room to room all the time. And so you'll walk in, you'll get the patient numb, and then you'll run into another room, and then you'll run into a different room, and then you're back in your office doing your notes. And what I'm trying to do now, because I am feeling some burnout, is to just go sit and talk to the patient while they're getting numb, which is 5 minutes. But just that connection reminds me that they're human, that I'm human, and that I care about them and they care about me. And I think that helps with some of the burnout. Even though, yes, I'm still having to do my notes when there's a break. It's still late when I go home. But I do feel like connection with my team keeps me from too much burnout. So that's probably the key.
Thank you for listening to the Authentic Dentist Podcast. To join Allison and Shawn on this journey, hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode. Here's to your success. Express yourself fully. Live authentic.